this is Rose of Sharon, and I'm back again with another anime movie review. Actually, it's two anime movie reviews. This is based off of nostalgia alone. I had witnessed both of these recommendations, sorry, cat hair, appear in my list on YouTube, and I thought, oh yes, I remember these from when I was a child. And of course, the movies to which I'm referring are both the Unico movies and the other YouTuber who had done a comprehensive review on Unico himself. She explained Unico's origins, and it was really quite well done, and kudos to her. But the first one is called The Adventures of Unico, and Unico has this gift of making everybody extremely happy, and the gods are having none of that, and they're jealous. So in order to reduce that, or to cause human beings to adulate them more, they have the West Wind come and spirit him away, and they take him to the island of the demons, or it's actually the island of Solitude, where demons actually dwell. And while he's there, he accidentally provokes a demon, and the demon destroys himself, and then young Beezle is left as an orphan. I think, oh, poor Beezle, but he makes his first friend, and we learn how demons play, which is very rough, and it takes off from there. It just, from the moment you meet these characters and how different they are, it's really quite delightful, but there's also a tinge of darkness and foreboding as well, especially when we meet Katie later on, who's just a regular cat. And there's also an homage to Hello Kitty when the song was introduced, not her, my bow is red, my whiskers long. Not when she sings that, but when Katie's the kitty to call, which I love, which is an excellent song. And she is just on this one track, determined, dogged, pardon the pun, she's a cat, oxymoron, but she wants to become a witch. And she meets this old lady in the woods, and of course, due to her picture book, she automatically assumes, oh, this is a witch. So she's come to believe everything she reads, and that's a pedantic tool to the viewer not to believe everything that you come across in writing, because you have to have some kind of skepticism, or at least be a little bit leery. You have to form your own opinions. You can't just form it off of everything you read. That's actually quite good advice. And real knowledge comes from experience, and Katie's story illustrates that. And of course, Prince Charming, we get to learn a little bit about that as well. And what's interesting about this particular film is it reminds me of Little Nemo, when Nemo comes across the Nightmare King, and the Baron is far more monstrous than the Nightmare King could ever wish he could have become. He doesn't even hold a candle. There's no comparison. A little bit of a spoiler, but still, that whole sequence, you think, holy crud, because it becomes very, very dark. But the first film has two antagonists involved. One of them is, of course, the Baron, and the other is the Night Wind. And the Night Wind is very intriguing, and we don't get to see that much of her, but she is very eerie, and I love the way her animation is done, how ethereal she is, which makes sense because she is made out of ether. But of course, we learn why the gods feel the way they do, and the purpose of the North Wind spiriting him away every time he helps somebody out, and what true love does to his form and his true powers. And I thought, oh, well, that makes sense. But the one that I'm most familiar with is, of course, the Island of Magic. Now, both of them I I give 5 stars, hands down, and 2 thumbs way up. And even though there was a little bit of lag with the dubbing, still, I think the voice actors and actresses did a splendid job on both. And with the second one, we have Lord Karuku, which is a terrifying villain. And even when I was a child, I wasn't terrified of him. But he's very intriguing. It's just unbelievably dark that with Toby, his minion, or actually Toby, well, yeah, Toby is a minion, but he doesn't realize that he's just another puppet, which is interesting because it's symbolic and allegorical in that way, because Karuku has a very intriguing backstory that Unico only learns about later on with the little Sphinx, or the the daughter of the Sphinx. And I like the fact that I was introduced to these mythological creatures really early on in life. I had always been fascinated by mythology, especially Greek mythology. So the unicorn, I'm not really certain where the unicorn hails from, but I've always been just intrigued with dragons and unicorns and sphinxes, and of course griffins, because I named my dog Griffin. But like the first one, I cried like a baby, and that was the first time I had actually encountered something like that, the emotion of it, and Karuku coming to grips with what true friendship really was, because he had never had that kind of emotion in his life, and it was literally melting his heart. And he actually had a happy ending with Sherry. And Sherry is Toby's sister. We learn that little twist of fate, and we think, oh, Sherry's Toby's sister. And you think, oh no, this is bad. This is horrible. And then of course things start to go really wrong. But I like the cat involved, who becomes Toby's little henchman. He's the king of the forest, and of course he's terrified of Unico. And it's only when his friends show up that he becomes all macho and has to show off and puff out his chest and prove just how manly and territorial and kingly and regal that he is. And I think typical male, but that's not really the case. Not all males are like that. He's the trope of the stereotypical egotistical male that wants to assert his authority on everybody. But anyway, both of these were really integral in shaping my childhood, and I think that they made me the person I am today. And I'd like to be like Unico. I like to make people happy as well. And a lot of people, and I'm kind of shy to admit to it, but a lot of people who are around me, they say, ever since I've gotten a chance to get to know you, you're like a breath of fresh air, and I can't help but be happy when I'm near you. And I'm awfully humbled and flattered by that, but it's just the fact of the matter that I've always been a happy child. I always enjoy sharing happiness and making people feel good about themselves, and embrace agape. Agape has no strings attached, and that's the true magic of friendship. Sorry to throw that in there, but I had to. But nonetheless, I was really happy in viewing those again and reliving my childhood, and remembering just how very ominous the subject matter became, and the topics that were actually delved into. And it's very unusual to see animation, especially, well, American animation can get into that sometimes, but Japanese animation, for some strange reason, really tackles these topics in a way that I think is relatable to all people, even when you find yourself later on in life, and is still relevant, and that's what makes it so powerful, I think. Um, Unico is actually an alicorn. I know I didn't really realize this until later. I didn't know what an alicorn was until I got into My Little Pony, but the things you learn, right? But I'm not watching MLP FIM anymore, even though I do enjoy it. I like the characters. It's just, I kind of grew out of it. I'm sad to say, but I still enjoy the fan art that I see, and I think that there are some very talented people, and I love unicorns. I can't help it. It's just, I gravitate in that direction. I can't stay away from unicorns. And alicorn, I guess I could say I like alicorns too now, because they're equally as magical. But I don't have that much else to say other than one sad thing I learned is there was supposedly a third Unico film, but it was never done because Uzama, um, he actually died, so he could never accomplish finishing that film. And I guess we'll never see what could have been, which is quite tragic because both films, I think, even though they were garnered toward a younger audience, are just outstanding. They are truly, unbelievably, phenomenally done films, especially for the time. And even though they were done in the 80s, I still think that they are extremely relevant. Um, it's a good teaching tool, and it just shows you there's certain things that you can't always take at face value. And the first film shows that with Katie and what happens with her and the Baron. And yeah, I'm not going to go into that, but yeah, you think. And also, it's also kind of a PSA as to why you shouldn't eat unusual berries and why you shouldn't consume too much alcohol. I'll leave the conclusions to you. But that's about all I have to say. So until next time, live long and prosper. Ciao, Tootsie.